The Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
Once more, Jesus spoke to them in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his slaves to call those who had been invited to the wedding banquet, but they would not come. Again, he sent other slaves, saying, 'Tell those who have been invited, look, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fat calves have been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.' But they made light of it and went away, one to his farm, another to his business, while the rest seized his slaves, mistreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his troops, destroyed those murderers, and burned their city. Then he said to his slaves, 'The wedding is ready, but those invited were not worthy. Go therefore into the main streets and invite everyone you find to the wedding banquet.' Those slaves went out into the streets and gathered all whom they found, both good and bad. So the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man who was not wearing a wedding robe. And he said to him, 'Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding robe?' And he was speechless. Then the king said to the attendants, 'Bind him, hand and foot, and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen.'" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Refer to the verses in Isaiah, your first reading today. Confirmation kids, here's your clues, okay? In the verses just prior to today's reading from Isaiah, the prophet has described how everything has been destroyed. There had been devastation all around, but suddenly in chapter 25, where we have today's reading, a great feast is announced, and nobody expects it. It comes as a big surprise. Somehow, it signals that God is doing something new, and whatever the pain and distress of the people have been feeling, God will now wipe away the tears from every face. The people celebrate with a festive banquet because God himself has had something to eat. And what he has had to eat is death. God has swallowed up death forever. This is the astonishing claim of Easter. God has swallowed up death. While Isaiah's vision of God's holy mountain is about God's dream for the world and the end of time, we participate in that vision as God works through us to bring about God's kingdom of justice. One way we participate in this work today is through the signing of Bread for the World letters. I encourage you to sign these letters asking our legislators to support efforts to eliminate hunger in our country and around the world by the year 2030. And another way we participate in God's work of restoring creation is through our efforts to support Tula and the water project she is working on. So today we get to hear about the way in which Tula's water project in Tanzania is bringing about justice and life for people in that country. Tula.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Pastor Aaron, for this opportunity, and thank you for everyone for being here and listening to my presentation. So I'm going to spend a few minutes to give you an update of water project that I'm working on in Tanzania, and you guys have been supporting this since, I think, early this year. And so maybe just a little bit of a background for those who are not aware of this project. There's a village in Arusha, which is in northern Tanzania, that they have poor access to safe water and water sources in general. And their main sources of water are ponds and shallow wells that are very seasonal. And so I had an opportunity to work with Tanzania Partnership Program through Michigan State. And I worked in this village, which is, at the same time, it's in my home country. But one of the things that they were really asking is to rehabilitate one of their water storage ponds. So they usually dig these ponds themselves, so they are not engineered properly. And because of that, they end up storing water only during the rainy season, 3 or 4 months in a year. And then after that, they're all dry and they start looking for water in other places. So they asked for this pond to be constructed. And it's a very big project, so Tanzania Partnership Program, the organization that I was working for, couldn't do it because it was too big. And I decided to help them by looking for different places where I can write proposals and see if they can help fund the project and work on it. So in the process of looking for organizations and places to put proposals in, I was able to put in through Engineers Without Borders. This is an organization that works with communities in developing countries that are having issues with water access and other things that are kind of engineering projects. So in engineering, Engineers Without Borders have chapters in every university in the United States, and including Michigan State. But Michigan State chapter had other projects going on, so they couldn't do this. And fortunately, we were able to, Yale University was interested in taking this project, so they accepted our proposal and they've started working on it. So I'm very grateful for that. So one of the process that goes with the Engineers Without Borders, they have to do it in 3 phases. They do assessment trip, which is going to the community. They meet the community, they see what's going on, they talk to the people. And then the second phase is the implementation trip, which is when they come back, they start raising money, and then they go back for the actual implementation and construction. And then after that, they have 5 years follow-up on the project to see the impact and things like that. So this morning, I'm just going to share with you what they did. So they made their assessment trip this past summer, and I went with them. And this is just to show you how, because this community is they're agro-pastoralists, so their main activities are agriculture and livestock keeping, so they have a lot of livestock. So the problem is they share their water sources with livestock, which is very unsafe. So having this pond will, first of all, increase the storage, which means the pond will have water all year round because it will be constructed by following engineering, principles and things like that. And also it will be built in a way that cows will not be able to walk in and destroy the pond and contaminate water. Oops. Okay, so this is just to show you, this is the topo map. If you are on an airplane and you're looking down, this is how the village look like. And so this area, the brown area, this is where most homes are. And it's a Maasai community, so their homes are called bomas. And so the most bomas are around here. And this little dot here, this is where the pond that they're asking to be constructed is. And this is the pond that they are using right now, which is about maybe 12 kilometers away from many homes. So women have to walk all the way, to here to get this water from this pond. And this is also seasonal. So when it gets to dry season, the water becomes really dirty. So this is what they're asking for. And then this is just a closer look of that pond. And then this area, it looks bare because after a while the pond stopped working, because it's seasonal and things like that. And so they started grazing in this area. And because of that, it made the area bare and there was no grass or anything. So when it's raining, it takes all the sediments and all the the runoff goes into the pond, and which adds up to destroying the pond. So that was one of the reasons why this pond failed, because it failed slowly, and then because they saw that it wasn't working, they started practicing other things that contributed to destroying the pond. So in August, this past summer, Yale team, I met with Yale team in Tanzania, and this is when they arrived, and we were at the district office where we had to make a courtesy call. And this guy with the blue shirt, his name is Dave Sacco. He's an engineer from one of the consulting companies in Connecticut, and he's the mentor of the chapter from Engineers Without Borders chapter in Yale University. And these 4 students, Patrick, Annabelle, Madison, and Connie, are undergraduate students from Yale who came to represent their chapter. And this is Jordan. He's a faculty member from Yale University. He's also a faculty advisor for the chapter. And this is myself. And this is Mary Malekela. She's a Tanzania Partnership Program manager from Michigan State. She works in Tanzania, but through Michigan State. So they work together to help with this project. And this is an engineer from a WIS consultant, which is an NGO from Tanzania, which works on like community projects like this, and they help. So they will be helping with this project, finding a local contractor and help with all the logistics. So the first day that we were there, we met with the community. So this was the first day after we arrived. And we met with just the key people in the village, water committee, livestock committee, elders in the village, the chairman of the village. So it was just the key people to talk to them about why we're there. Of course, they knew, but it was just kind of introducing ourselves and the expectations for the next 2 weeks that we were going to be there. So that was Dave, doing some introduction. And so another day, we had to meet with the clinic. There's a small clinic in the village. And the main issues there was because there are a lot of waterborne diseases going on and health issues and things like that. So Engineers Without Borders usually likes to do like an assessment in the beginning to see what's going on, what are the problems, and then they will follow up on that and track to see if after they do the work, after they put in a pond, are there going to be any changes health-wise? Are they going to improve health? Are they going to do those things? So they talk to this is one of the clinical officers there to get some information about what are the problems, what are the issues health-wise related to waterborne diseases. And there's a primary school in the village as well, which is elementary school, with about 400 kids. And so EWB was very interested in talking to the school, teachers and kids at separate times. So they talked to the teachers first about attendance, why, any issues that are related to water. For example, the big thing was many children will not attend school because they'll have to stay home with their siblings because their mothers are going to collect water. Because it takes forever to collect water, then they cannot leave babies at home by themselves. So siblings will have to stay home some days and miss school because of that. And sometimes, kids will get sick. There's one child who had to repeat a year because he was sick for a very long time from stomach diseases and diarrhea diseases. So he had to repeat a year, actually. So they talk to the kids and the teachers to hear from them about what the existing situation, and then afterwards they'll go back and talk to them again to see after the pond is now installed, is it now making a difference? Are there any changes? And then another thing that they did was to meet with the women. So they just selected few women in the village to talk to them about the water problems, because women are the ones that are collecting water, not men. So we wanted to talk to them and hear in depth what are the issues, how far do they walk, and what are the challenges. And one of the things that they said was sometimes they will go to, especially during dry season, there'll be a long line of cows drinking out of a water source, and they will have to wait for those cows to be done so that they can get water. So there'll be a walking distance problem, and then there'll be a waiting time and things like that. So that was the reason they had to meet with the women as well. So this is the picture of a pond that needs to be constructed. It's a very big pond. It's a very big project, so it will need a lot of money, of course, and a lot of just the manual work. And right now, in this area where there are grass, this is where water is supposed to be. So because it stopped working maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, it's not storing water anymore. So it has, all grass growing and everything else. So that's the picture of it. And then maybe just to give you an idea of what we're planning to do. So this bottom part is kind of how it looks like right now, but without water. And we are hoping after this project is done, it will look like the top part. So it will have three different berms around, and this open side is the side where water will be coming in from the drainage. And they are also hoping to have cattle troughs and domestic points outside and have a pump from the middle so that water can come from the pipe outside. That way cows cannot walk in the pond and destroy the pond. And also the pond will store water all year round and water will be safe. So this is kind of what we are looking for. So one of the things that we did in addition to meeting with the community and talking to the community was to walk around and look at the situation in the village. What are the water sources? What are the other places that they get water? So this is actually in the river. This is like on the riverbed. So this is like really, really high up here. It's about maybe 30 feet from this ground level to here. And during rainy season, this area is all full of water because this is the river. And if you look at this is like a little well that it's hand dug. And during dry season, what women do, they will dig these wells by hand and wait for like 5 minutes water to come up and then collect it. So it's obviously not safe, but it also takes a long time because they have to walk all the way here and then dig it by hand and wait and then collect it and then go home. So they were just looking around to see what are other issues and see if there will be any alternative or any additional thing they can do in addition to constructing the pond. And also, so this is at the pond near the area, and Dave brought some maps that he collected from Google Earth where they would show a series of different years from, back in 2005, I believe, how the pond was it was getting worse and worse. So when it stopped collecting water, when it started failing. So he was just kind of showing us maps and what to do, and it was just like a field work around and looking at different logistics in the pond. And then another thing that we did, so this is again at the pond, and we wanted to take different elevation shots. So this is an instrument that is used to get the actual elevation of the area and just to see the topography of the area, where is upstream, where is downstream, where is water coming from, and things like that. So that's just another picture of students, taking some measurements, taking different points, and then with all that information, they're supposed to, they come back here and map out all the area and how it looks like, so that they can, estimate how much work is needed and how much is going to cost and things like that. Another thing that they did was because there's a lot of sediments accumulating over the years, and one of the big job that will be needed there is to excavate. There will be a lot of digging in that pond so that they can get enough depth and store enough water. And to do that, and to create those walls around to protect the pond, they need to use some soil materials. So one of the things to find out is, do we need to go somewhere else and get materials to bring in, or use the local material? And to know if you can use the local material is to dig out and do some soil testing to see if that soil is feasible enough to be used. So that was what was going on here, and the villagers were there to help in so many ways. They dug all the holes. We had 2 older guys who have been there forever in the village, so they told us the history about the pond, when was it constructed, how did it start failing, and things like that. So that's Connie. I don't know if you can see, but she was trying to make just playing with the soil to see how much clay is in the soil. And and then the right picture is just the digging, one of the holes that we dug around the pond. And then this picture on the right is just when, so the holes were about maybe 10 feet deep, and by going that down, you can see different layers of soils. So that was just one of the pictures that, David was trying to look at. And now on the very last day, after all those things were done in 2 weeks, we had a meeting with the whole community. So everyone was invited. And so many people came, and so one of the other things that they did also was to do some testing, so water testing to see how safe that water is. So people came into the meeting, and EWB gave them the feedback, why we're there, what they found out, suggestions of what they should do in the future, and what are the next steps. So I couldn't get a picture of us on the other side, but this is just a picture of some of the people who attended that meeting on the final day. And they had a lot of questions. They are so excited. And one of the things that they were told, and is one of the EWB requirements, is that the community has to contribute to 5% of the total cost. So they were notified that, and they are so ready to contribute that in addition to in-kind contribution, such as digging and all the manual work. So that was one of the things they were told on that meeting. So way forward, we were hoping to have a preliminary report by December from EWB, from Yale chapter, and summarizing what they have done and how much the total project will cost and everything else. And then hopefully next summer it will be the implementation, so the actual construction of the project. And also because as a preparation, the villagers were told to stop grazing in the upstream where the water is coming in to the pond, to avoid continuing with causing erosion, and also to start planting some sisal plants and other plants that will help with regrowing the grass and preventing from further erosion. So yeah, that was it. Thank you very much. So I would like to thank you all so much for your support from the beginning and for your continued support. Thank you, Pastor Ellen, for just taking this project and deciding to help us in any way you could with the congregation. So thank you again so much.
Thank you. I want you to know that it is because we started this effort that she was able to secure the students from Yale University and Engineers Without Borders. Once we started it, they came on board. And that, I think, you need to be aware of. Thank you, Tula.
Thank you.